Kate, Charles, Malcolm, and
Hey, Judge.
how y'all?
Good.
I don't see. What's the defendant's name?
Porfirio Mendoza, Your Honor. He's at my office. We're just getting him set up. He got there about 10 minutes ago.
Is he going to watch it with you?
No, I'm at my house and he's at my office.
Okay.
My office is in McKinney.
What should the name on the Zoom be then?
I guess for him it would be Porfirio Mendoza. Oh, the way it might come in under is Emanol Miranda. My paralegals thing. And let me double check and see where they're setting them up real quick.
She's not on here either, so.
Hang on.
Wendy Crooks,
No, but
not it.
one of their witnesses. I never sent it to his defendant, he never gave it to me. So he said it could be under Porfirio, or it'll be under Emanol, which is his legal assistant.
Or not. Claudia. We want Claudia in here. Says you're trying to join. Lost Malcolm.
It kicked me off 3 times. It's been on.
Claudia. Phone lines are currently down at the courthouse.
Yeah, they're only getting 50 signals if they call.
Even though people aren't busy.
Sorry, Judge, lost you there.
Have you figured out where your guy is?
Yeah, he's at the office. They couldn't find the link, so I created a new link for them, and they should be doing it right now. It just was maybe a couple of minutes ago.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out whose phone or iPad is being used, Judge.
There it is.
There he is.
We have to unmute it if you want.
Let him know to unmute it.
Unless you just want to mute it the whole time until it's time to testify if he wants to. I think this is everybody we need. Have y'all seen who all's here? I think all these are your witnesses.
My witnesses should be in the waiting room. I've been informed from them that they are.
There's 7 people, so. All right, this is, 003-82795-2019, state text versus Porfirio Mendoza. And we're here on the state has filed, I guess, a motion to revoke, and we're here on that motion to revoke. The my understanding, defendant is going to enter a plea of not true, and so he's going to put the state to its proof. Mr. You might want to unmute for a second. Mr. Mendoza.
Hang on, let me see if I can get him. You need to unmute, Porfirio. There's a button on the phone that'll have you press because right now they can't hear you. You need to make an announcement. Got it.
And Your Honor, briefly before he does that, the state is abandoning allegations 5 and 7.
5 and 7. Okay. Mr. Mendoza, do you understand that the state has filed a motion to revoke you?
Yes, sir.
And have you had a chance to read the allegations in that motion to revoke?
Yeah.
You got to talk real loud because we have a court reporter trying to take down everything you say.
Yes, sir.
Right. And did you just hear the state said they are going to abandon paragraphs 5 and 7? Okay. Did you hear that?
Sure.
To the remaining allegations, how do you plead? True or not true?
I'll consult with my attorney.
You're pleading not true to the allegations.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Judge, he's just nervous.
You plead not true to the remaining allegations?
Not true.
All right. Does the state wish to make an opening statement, or you just want to call your first witness?
Just briefly, Your Honor.
Okay.
So this is a revocation for a DWI second. The primary allegations involve an offense that occurred on March 28th of last year. He was arrested for evading arrest with a motor vehicle and driving while license invalid. There was also, as the evidence will show, a lot of alcohol involved in those accidents. Besides the new offenses, his actions on that day also constituted many other violations of his probation. So through the witnesses and evidence, we're going to ask you to find the remaining allegations not true.
True or not true?
True. I apologize. True.
Does defense wish to make an opening statement?
Just briefly, Your Honor. Your Honor, my client has been working on probation and his sobriety since July 26th of 2019. While he has had some issues throughout that case, he continues to work diligently at his employment, and he continues to work his services that he's been asked to under the probation. In addition, I believe that the district attorney had mentioned that there was a charge of driving while license invalid. To the best of my knowledge, that case has been dismissed. So I'm not sure if that's something that can be used in this particular proceeding. I don't believe there's a bond on it, and there was never any final adjudication on that case. That said, Your Honor, this case is set to expire, I believe, on the 26th of this month. So we asked very quickly that the court put this case on for a hearing, because if we waited much after that or for the pandemic to quell, we'd have a problem that either the DA could dismiss the case or we would only be looking at time. So my client believes that he's continuing the efforts that he needs to be continuing, and that the court, and ask the court that the revocation be denied, and that the court find that these allegations are not true.
All right. Call your first witness.
Your Honor, right before we start, I have a question about exhibits. So we have quite a few witnesses and exhibits. 3 of my witnesses are being called exclusively to lay the predicate for some of the evidence, 911 calls and videos. The defense counsel hasn't stipulated to those evidence yet. I just wanted to, I guess, throw it out there one more time if that'd be possible for the sake of this hearing.
Your Honor, we're not willing to stipulate to these.
State calls Zeke Murphy.
Mr. Murphy, you there?
He stated to me earlier today that he's at work. He's taking a break for this, and he's going to be on his cell phone. So hopefully his data connection is good enough.
Yeah. I mean, it shows his name. It doesn't show that he's connected up though. There we go. Mr. Murphy, you're muted right there. You go.
Okay, there it is.
You
Sorry
ready?
about that. Yes, sir.
If you would raise your right hand and be sworn.
Okay, sorry. Okay,
You swear or affirm testimony about the giving this cause be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Good morning, Mr. Murphy. Could you spell your name for the record, please?
Michael, Michael. Murphy, Murphy.
What is your occupation?
I work security for nightclubs and hotels, and I also do Christmas lights. That's what we're doing right now, is taking down Christmas lights.
Okay. Where do you live?
I live in McKinney.
Where were you living on March 28th, 2020?
At 908 Main Street in McKinney.
Okay. And on March 28th, 2020, did you make a 911 call that day?
Yes, I did.
Can you give me some background on what that 911 call was about?
Almost every night there would be somebody peeling out front and white smoking their tires, and it'd be like 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning, and it'd be waking everybody in the neighborhood up. And then I saw that same car flying through during
Objection,
the
Your
day.
Honor. Objection as to narrative and as to non-responsive.
This thing.
So there was a car that had been peeling up before. Was this happening this night on March 28th?
This was during the day this time.
Objection, you sustained my objection, and the DA is now testifying and bringing into the questions that he was asking the witness, Your Honor. So I renew my objection.
Overruled.
Okay, what do I need to do?
Just wait for a question.
Okay.
Can you tell me about specifically what happened on March 28th?
Yes, me and my roommate were outside cleaning a truck, and all the kids were out in the street playing, and a white Challenger or Charger, I get those mixed up, was flying around the neighborhood, and it was obvious they were intoxicated, and they were just being
Objection as
obnoxious.
to narrative and objection as to cause for speculation.
This thing. Ask your next question.
So after you saw the car driving like this, did you recognize it from any other times?
Yes.
These other times you had seen it, was it doing the same type of thing?
Yes.
Had you ever seen the car? Did you ever did the person ever get out of the car during any of these times?
Only the day that I called the police, that's the first time I actually saw him.
What did he get out for? Did he get out for a while or did he get right back in?
He just stepped outside of his door to pee.
So he peed just right there in front of everybody?
He walked over next to a tree that was a couple feet away from the car.
Okay. Was that close to children too?
He wasn't exposed or anything. He was covered, but
Okay.
yeah, it was in the same parking lot.
Whenever he got out of his car, was there anything strange about him? The way he walked, his mannerisms, anything that you could see in the car?
I couldn't see anything in the vehicle, but yes, he was a little slurry and wobbly.
Okay. And you said that normally when this happens, it's during the evening. In the past?
It's usually about 1 or 2 in the morning, and so there's not many people standing outside. But when we're trying to sleep, and he just parks in front of the house and starts white smoking his tires, it wakes everybody up, and I'll look out there, and it's always that same car.
Okay. This time it was during the afternoon, though, right?
Yes.
Okay. Had anyone else in the community said anything about this individual or whoever it is that was driving this car in that issue?
As far as I've been told, for facts, I don't know, but one of the ladies did approach
Objection
him.
as to hearsay, Your Honor.
Sustain.
Okay. Let me finish what I was saying. One of the
Well, I can
ladies
ask
did
another
walk
question.
over there.
Mr. Murphy, let me stop you right there and let me just ask
Okay.
another question.
Okay.
So just a yes or no answer. Was there any discussion at all ever with other people about this car?
Yes.
So that day, he was driving. How fast was he going whenever he'd peel off?
Well, like I told
Objection,
you
Your
earlier,
Honor. I would say that calls for speculation. There's no way he can possibly know that.
and
Can
that's
you
what I was going to
approximate?
say.
Sustain, rephrase your question.
Can you give an estimate on how fast that car was going?
And I renew my objection, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Was overruled me to answer it, or?
Yes.
Okay. It wouldn't be going fast, but it would be going from 0 to 20 in about half a second, just rapidly.
Okay.
But there's
And-
not enough road to pick up speed. It's just a short little 40-foot road.
Okay. And you said that there were children playing around. How close were the children to this?
I'd say the closest he got was within 15 feet, close enough for us to holler at the kids and tell them to just go inside while he's out there.
Okay. And then at what point did you make the 911 call?
After one of the other mothers approached him while he was standing outside peeing, she approached him and said he needs to slow down. And he
Objection
started.
as to hearsay, Your Honor.
Sustain.
That's not hearsay. I was standing right there and saw it.
Well, it's okay. Let's just move on from there, Mr. Murphy.
Okay.
So what would you like? So there were kids around. Were any of the children yours?
No, sir.
Was anybody doing anything to keep the kids safe from this vehicle?
Yes, we were all telling them to stay up close to the house. They were playing out in the street and playing in the parking lot, but we told them they had to go play under the stairs or something because he was just going to keep doing it.
Okay. After he made the 911 call, what happened then?
He left at the time that I made the call. He was leaving. And then as the police were pulling up, he pulled back around again. And the cops, they were crossing him, and they turned the lights on and motioned for him to stop. And he just floored it and took off. And they chased him around the neighborhood for a little bit. And
Okay.
the last I saw was a couple streets over. I saw them with him on the ground at gunpoint.
Okay. No further questions, Judge.
Does defense have any questions?
Yes, Your Honor. Now, you had mentioned that you believe this was the same car due to the fact that this had happened in the early morning hours. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So you would have been up at 1 or 2 a.m. whenever this happened. Is that correct?
No, I was asleep until I heard the tires screeching and waking me up. So I looked outside the window to see who it was, and of course, it was always that car.
And at night, you'd be able to tell that it was that car?
Yes, sir.
How far away from your window is that car?
Less than 20 feet.
Was your window Venetian blinds or drapes pulled shut?
Just clear glass. No blinds, no
In your
nothing.
bedroom, you don't have any shades or any Venetian blinds or anything.
No, sir, I don't.
So everybody can see what you're doing right before you go to bed.
Yes.
So if I was to look at your room right now, there would not be any curtains or any Venetian blinds.
No, sir.
Does your wife feel okay about that?
I rent a room from a Spanish family, so I just have a little room in the house.
Okay.
It's just me.
Now, at the time that you had said you'd seen this several times, how many times is several times?
It was probably at least 10.
Okay. Did you ever see if there was a license plate?
I never looked at the plate, and I never saw him personally.
And you realize there's lots of Dodge Challengers or Chargers in the areas.
Yeah, I do, but I see the
It's a
same
pretty
car
you'd
pull
agree
around and
that's-
park at the house.
You'd agree that's a pretty common car.
It is.
Okay. And during the day, you were certain that this was exactly the same car that you had seen at night.
Yes.
How could you be certain?
Same rims, same everything. I mean, it's not
Did
very
you
common for somebody to come over there in that car in that neighborhood and do the same thing night after night, and it'd be a different person.
Well, you said 10 nights. How long did you live there?
A couple months.
So that's out of 60 days, you said maybe 10 times that it happened. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever call the police, say, after the second or third time?
No, because nobody was in danger.
Okay. So a car 20 feet away from you revving up its engines isn't a danger to you.
Not when I'm on the second floor in my bedroom.
Okay. All right. Or the bottom. I mean, they could have lost control and knocked into the bottom half of your building. Is that correct?
Yes, but that doesn't bother me as much as kids out in the street.
Objection, non-responsive.
Same.
Not sure what that means.
No. That just means you didn't answer my question. So you answered the question you wanted to answer.
Okay.
Now, with respect to the day that you said you'd never called the police until this one afternoon. Is that correct?
Yes.
You'd never seen him before then until this afternoon, correct?
Yes.
So how could you be sure it was him and not somebody else or a group of his friends?
I'm not sure. That's what I was saying is I've only seen him that day. I don't know who was driving the car the rest of the times, if his friends were joyriding or.
Well, you'd indicated before that you felt it was the same car and you intimated that it was the same person.
No,
However,
I said it's the same car, but I don't know if it was the same person.
Judge, this has all been
All
asked
right.
and answered several times.
Sustained.
All right. Now, you mentioned that this was the only time that you sought to call the police. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And why did you not call police before?
Objection,
already
asked and
answered that.
Judge.
Sustained.
All right. I'll pass the witness.
Anything else from this witness?
No, Judge.
Is this witness released?
Yes, Judge.
Yes, Your Honor.
You're free to go. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all so much.
Call your next witness.
State calls Laura Matson.
Excuse me,
Unmute.
Mr.
You'll need to unmute.
And Your Honor.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
If you would raise your right hand and be sworn. You swear or affirm testimony about the giving this cause to be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
All right.
Ms. Madsen, can you spell your name for the record, please? Ms. Madsen, are you there?
I think she froze up.
It's Laura, L-A-U-A-D.
Oh.
Yes. Sorry.
We lost you
but
there
need to
for a
repeat it.
second. Are you there, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, are we good to go, are we good to go, Judge?
I think it's on, yeah.
Okay. Ma'am, how are you employed?
I work for the police department, the McKinney Police Department.
How long have you been working there?
I've been with the city for 13 years.
And what do you do with McKinney PD?
I'm an administrative assistant for communications.
Okay. How does your job description relate to handling 911 calls?
I'm the custodian of records for our 911 system.
Okay. And have you had the chance to review what has been presented to the court as State's Exhibit 1?
Yes, I have.
And what is that?
They're the recordings of 3 911 calls.
Okay. What do you have the date for the first one, State's Exhibit 1?
Their first date is 11/1/2018.
Okay. Have you had a chance to listen to it?
Yes, I have.
And was it made on a device capable of making an accurate recording?
Yes, sir.
Did that device record a call made to 911 on November 1st, 2018?
Yes, it did.
Have any changes or alterations been made to the recording?
No, sir.
Is it a true copy of the 911 call on November 1st, 2018?
Can you repeat that?
Is it a true and correct copy of the 911 call that was made on November 1st, 2018? Is it a true and correct copy of that 911 call?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Your
It
Honor,
is.
Your Honor, the state offers Exhibit 1.
Your Honor, may I take this witness on voir dire?
Yes.
With respect to your position as custodian of records with 911 calls, were you the custodian of records at the time that this recording was made?
Yes, I was.
And how long have you been the custodian of records for McKinney PD?
11.5 years.
And you handle each and every one of the 911 calls if they get called into a misdemeanor or a felony court?
I wouldn't say I send them all to the DA. I send some.
And with this
Some of
particular,
them just go with the evidence was in.
and with this particular one, it was requested from you and you sent it, is that correct?
I'm not really sure if I sent that one or not. I would have to go back through and look at my records.
You were asked if you had reviewed them. Did you review the contents or did you just review the technology was correct?
No, I reviewed the call in its entirety.
But at the time that you were made, you were not responsible other than if you were asked for them later. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
All right. I'll pass the witness. No objection, Your Honor.
All right. State 1 is admitted.
Thank you, Judge. And if I could ask a question right now, at the end of this part, if the allegations are found to be true, for punishment, we are intending to admit 2 other 911 calls through Ms. Madsen. May we lay the predicate for those and conditionally admit them now?
Sure.
Sure.
Ms. Madsen, have you reviewed what's been presented to the court as State's Exhibits 5 and 6
Yes, I have.
And what are those?
They're 911 calls.
What are the dates from the 911 calls?
The one is on 11/1/2018, and the other one is 3/28/20.
Okay. I think we have a slide. I think we got some of them out of order. Ms. Matson, I don't know if you
Oh,
need,
okay.
I don't know if it would help for you to review or just to refresh your memory. The States Exhibit 1 is a recording from March 28, 2020, which is one that has
Okay,
been
that's the
admitted.
current one. I apologize.
Okay, and so what are the dates for States Exhibits 5 and 6?
Then that would be, both of them would be on 11/1/2018.
Okay. Have you had a chance to listen to those recordings?
Yes, sir.
Was it made on a device capable of making an accurate recording?
Yes, sir.
And so did that device record a call made to 911 on November 1st, 2018?
Yes, it did.
Have any changes or alterations been made?
No, sir.
So is it a true and correct copy of those 911 calls from that date?
Yes, it is.
And the state would like to offer States Exhibits 5 and 6.
No objection, Your Honor.
5 and 6 are admitted. Well, they'll be admitted for punishment if we get there.
Yes, Judge.
Is that right?
No further questions. I would like to publish that exhibit.
Okay. You're talking about States 1?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm not sure how we do that.
Well, we provided hard copies of all the exhibits to the court yesterday. If I'm capable of sharing my screen, if you know how to allow me to share my screen, I'm happy to play them as well.
Okay. I mean, what I figured we were going to do is I'd take this under advisement when we're done. I just listen to all the tapes and videos, and I would watch
Sure.
them all later rather than making y'all sit through them again, unless y'all need to sit through them.
Okay,
No
Judge.
objection, Your Honor.
That's probably the easier way and save y'all more time. That
Okay,
work?
Judge.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That'll work, Your Honor.
Okay.
So no further questions on direct.
Anything else from this witness?
No, Your Honor, witness is excused.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Matson. You're free to go.
All right. Thank you very much.
Call your next witness.
State calls Officer Daniel Falcon.
Assuming that's Ann Falcon. Officer Falcon, we can't see you and it's muted. We still can't see you though. We do see it's unmuted now.
He just changed the name from a female name to Daniel Falcon. He might be in the menu right now.
There we go.
There we go.
Here we go. Sorry, guys.
That's all right. If you would raise your right hand and be sworn, you swear or affirm testimony about to give be truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do, sir.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Falcon, could you spell your name for the record, please?
Yes, sir. It's Daniel Falcon, DANIEL FALCON.
And how are you employed?
I am a police officer with McKinney PD.
And how long have you had that position?
I've been there a year, sir.
Okay. Can you give us a brief rundown on your training?
Yes, sir. I was actually employed with the Texas DPS as state trooper back in March of 2011 to 2019. Did a academy for over 20 weeks there in Austin. And then I resigned in 2019, and then I got hired on with McKinney Police Department there back in December of 2019, and had my previous training through DPS and had a in-house what they call RTA training, and then FTO program for about 3 months there.
Okay. So you were a licensed police officer, a peace officer on March 28th, 2020?
Yes, sir.
Where were you working that day?
I was still on FTO at the time with Officer McCluskey. I was working the east side on that shift, so it might have been a 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. shift or a 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. shift. Not really sure what the schedule was on that day.
Were you alerted to any incident that later led to an arrest on that day?
Yes, sir. I was dispatched to a reckless driver approximately at 2:55 p.m. at Drexel Street and Main Street. So there was a call service for that reckless driver.
Okay, so did you go to that location? What happened?
Yes, sir. Arrived there, and we were told by dispatch that there was a Hispanic male driving a white Dodge Challenger. And so I arrived in the area, and immediately I observed the white Challenger southbound on Main Street coming from behind some apartment complexes. He was coming from the north side and was heading southbound on Main Street, approaching me. So I
Objection as to narrative, Your Honor.
Sustain. Ask another question.
Officer Falcon, what happened after that?
So made contact with the vehicle, activated my emergency lights to make contact with him, exit my vehicle, and right away the driver continued southbound and passed me and told him to stop. And he continued left, which is eastbound, there on Drexel, I'm sorry, continued eastbound Drexel. So I had to make a 3-point, turnaround to catch up to him. By that time, he made a right turn lane, which is southbound on Throckmorton, and then that's when Officer Sanchez intercepted him there, and I just followed in behind.
Okay, and how long were y'all following him for?
It might have been I want to say maybe, he made a block there, so he just made, I want to say like a minute or so. It wasn't a very long pursuit.
Okay. Were your and the other officer vehicles lights on during this chase?
Yes, sir. Yeah, everyone's lights and sirens were on. And like I said, once Officer Sanchez intercepted him there on Throckmorton, we followed in behind, and then he pretty much just did a little, did a full circle and came to a stop there on 903 Throckmorton Place. And that's when we did a felony stop on the
Okay. So before he stopped, you had your lights going. Were your sirens going as well?
I believe so, sir. I know I had my lights on completely turned on. I know Officer Sanchez in front of me had his sirens on as well.
Okay. So if an officer puts on his lights and if there's at least one siren going, what does that mean to the driver that they're directing it at?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation.
Sustain.
Were you signaling anything to the driver of the vehicle when you turned on your siren?
Yes, sir. It means that he's being stopped and he's being detained at the time. So they need to pull over right immediately.
Now, have you reviewed what has been presented to the court as State's Exhibit 2?
Yes, sir. I've reviewed the video last night, or actually this morning, because I just got off shift this morning.
What is the video of?
The video is my dash cam and body worn camera footage of what took place that day and the pursuit, and obviously me attempting to stop the vehicle when I first observed the vehicle there on Main Street.
Okay. Has the video been altered in any way from when it was first taken?
No, sir.
So it is a true and accurate recording of what happened on that day?
Yes, sir.
Judge, the state offers State's Exhibit 2 evidence.
Any objection?
Your Honor, I just had a few questions about the video too for Officer Falcone. Officer Falcone, during this video that was taken, were any of the interviews conducted in Spanish?
No, sir. The driver knew pretty good English, sir.
But is it not true that you also interviewed some collaterals that were present during the time this stop had happened?
Yes, sir. I spoke to people around the neighborhood, just, further investigation and just kind of just put stuff together. But as far as the driver, I did not interview him in Spanish.
And with respect to the communications that you had in Spanish, do you speak Spanish?
Yes, sir.
And you would say that they took up maybe 7 to 8 minutes of the total 28-minute video. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, one more time.
The time that you interacted with the Spanish-speaking family was about 7 to 8 minutes. Is that correct?
Approximately. It's pretty brief. Yes, sir.
To the best of your knowledge, has a certified interpreter made interpretations of those communications?
Yes, sir. I'm certified as a bilingual through McKinney PD, but
What's your license number for interpretation?
my license, I have no idea. I don't know, sir. I didn't never receive a license number. I just get.
No, to be a licensed interpreter for the purposes of court. Do you have one of those licenses?
I do not, sir.
Well, Your Honor, we would not object to any portions conducted in English, but any of the portions conducted in Spanish, we would object to them being admitted in this video.
Well,
And
I won't be able to understand them anyway, so. But is that fine with y'all if it's admitted with subject?
yes, Your Honor. The section of Officer Falcon's video, State's Exhibit 2, is just the first couple minutes right whenever the defendant pulls over. And if it helps for you, just for the rest of the videos, if you're going to review them later, if it would help for you, I can give you time markers on what are the more relevant portions.
Okay. So Exhibit 2 will be admitted up to, I don't know how many minutes into it.
I want to say it was about minute 11, maybe 11 or 12.
But I'll let the state give me, tell me when to stop watching. I mean,
I was going to stop at 1 minute and 52 seconds on
52 into it.
From the very beginning of the video up until 1 minute and 52 seconds.
Okay.
That's roughly the time when the defendant exits the vehicle.
Okay. I'll watch it through that point, but State 2 is admitted through that point. Okay.
No further questions.
Does the defense have any further questions?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. You had mentioned that you were on FTO with McCluskey. What is FTO?
It's just a field training portion of the to see if you're proficient in just kind of it's a field training part of the as far as if you're competent enough to do the job and whatnot. So just
Now, in your prior testimony, you had indicated that between 2011 and 2019, you were with DPS. Is that correct?
yes, sir.
And what were your duties as a DPS trooper?
Mainly traffic, working traffic, just working crashes. Is more of a role of just stopping a lot of cars and working DWIs especially. So.
And why did you resign?
For my family, sir, just betterment my family and better scheduling and just better opportunities. So,
And so the city of McKinney pays better than DPS does?
not necessarily, but it wasn't for the money, sir.
Were there any other problems that you had with the discipline as far as that goes before you resigned?
No, sir. I was discharged honorably.
Okay. Now, you had to re-repeat all of your training basically with McKinney PD, is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's part of their, part of the program. So just an FTO program. Just
How far along were you in training when you were doing FTO with McCluskey on March 28th of 2020?
I was in my last phase, sir.
Okay. Now, you'd indicated that he didn't stop when you originally flashed him, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I saw him and I immediately turned my emergency lights on, and then
Objection as to non-responsive after yes.
Sustained.
Now, how fast was he driving?
he was not driving fast at all, sir.
Okay, can you give me a guesstimate? 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour?
I would say about 5 miles an hour.
Okay. And the streets are very narrow in that area, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Just where he was coming from. So yeah, it's kind of narrow back there. He's coming from behind the apartment complex.
And objection, non-responsive after yes, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Okay. Now, there were cars parked on this narrow street on both sides of the street, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is it possible he didn't see you when you flashed him there?
No, sir. I was directly in front of him.
Now, he was going southbound, is that correct? And you were on the east side, is that correct?
I was on the east side of town, so we considered the east side, but I was northbound on Main, and then he was southbound on Main.
Basically, he crossed you while you were parked, is that correct?
No, sir. I was still rolling. I was actually on Drexel going eastbound, and then I saw the vehicle behind the apartment complex, which is the north side. They're at.
Isn't it true that there were cars obstructing you and there's no way he could have seen you, at least where you first flashed your lights off on Drexel?
No, sir. Because I was directly.
Now, you weren't driving in his perspective. You were only looking at him from your perspective, correct?
That's not correct, sir.
You could see from his perspective whether he could see you or not. Is that correct?
I was right in front of him when I activated my emergency lights.
And he was driving 5 miles an hour, and right in front of you would have been roughly 10 feet. Is that correct?
A little bit further than that.
And it wasn't night. And it wasn't nighttime, correct?
No, sir. It was daytime.
It was daytime. So your lights lose some effectiveness during the daytime. Is that correct?
No, sir. They're pretty bright still.
Okay. So you think you can see him, therefore everybody else can see him. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I had my front and rear lights on.
So you saw your lights.
Not from the driver's seat, but.
But you're sure that even though you didn't see your lights, that he saw your lights?
I'm 100% he saw my lights. Yes, sir.
And how can you be certain of that?
Before my shift starts, we have to do a check.
Objection, non-responsive. How can you be sure he saw your lights?
Because I turn on my lights, sir.
Okay, and so that automatically means he saw them, and that's all there is to it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
It's possible he was driving straight. It's possible he was looking to his right or left to be complying with the rules of traffic, correct?
I mean, yeah, he could be doing all that stuff, but like I said, I was.
And you'd mentioned that you'd been involved in DPS with accident reconstructions or accidents where there's lots of explanations for collisions. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And isn't it true that many times one driver doesn't see the other driver? Is that correct?
When it comes to crashes, correct.
Now, with respect to the time before he pulled over, how much time was that again?
It was a very short pursuit, sir. Approximately, I want to say maybe a minute or so.
Okay. Now, there weren't very many places for him to pull over. Is that correct?
There's plenty of places to pull over.
There were cars on the right and there were cars on the left. Is that correct?
Not throughout the whole part of the neighborhood there. There's
Would
plenty-
you agree that there were no way two cars or two cruisers and one car could have pulled over in one of the areas on the side street immediately?
He had time to pull over, sir.
Okay. Well, and it's true that he did pull over, correct?
Yes.
In somebody's driveway, isn't that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that's a safe place to stop. Would you agree?
Yes, sir.
And he came out as you directed him, is that correct?
We had to do a felony stop because we, anytime there's a pursuit, we have to take precaution and do our felony.
But he did follow with all of your commands, correct?
Yes, sir.
I'll pass the witness.
Any further questions?
Just briefly, Your Honor. So officer, the way you've described it, just tell me if I'm correct. The way you've described it is that whenever you see the defendant's car for the first time, y'all are facing each other, correct?
So from the first time that I saw him, he's coming from the north side of the building. I see him, I see the vehicle and I observe the vehicle. So I have to kind of back up to get to Main Street to go northbound on Main and Drexel. And immediately I activated my lights. And then that's when we approach each other. He's going southbound, I'm going northbound. And I still have my emergency lights still activated. I exit my vehicle because he's, within maybe 10 feet from me. I exit my vehicle. I tell the driver to stop. He continues east on Drexel. And by that time, I have to turn around to catch up to the vehicle. And then that's when he turns right, which is southbound on Throckmorton. And that's where Officer Sanchez has his lights activated and intercepts the vehicle there. From that point, the vehicle goes northbound and kind of just does like a circle back to that residence on Throckmorton Place. And that's when we make contact with the driver and have to do a felony stop and take him into custody.
No further questions, Judge.
Anything
Now,
else?
just so I stand corrected over here, you weren't looking at him as he passed you on a broadside, correct?
From when I first observed the vehicle, it was from my left side because he's north, right behind the apartment complex. So I have to back up to go northbound on Main there. And then that's when lights.
An officer, you understand there were 4 dash cam videos. So I mistakenly mentioned one of them where it was a broadside. But let me ask you this. With you going northbound and him going southbound, even if he had stopped there, would that have been a safe place to stop?
Yes, sir.
Right in the middle of the street with cars parked on the left and parked on the right.
We weren't at the intersection. He was just on Main Street. Main Street in that part is a parking lot to that apartment complex. So it kind of connects. There's not a curb there.
Would you agree if he was really trying to evade this chase, he would have driven a lot faster and the last place he would have gone to?
Objection to speculation, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Okay. Isn't it true that he didn't speed up after your interaction with him on the northbound, southbound portion? Is that correct?
He never sped up, no, sir.
And in fact, he made all references to you that he wasn't trying to escape from you, correct?
Objection calls for speculation. He was in a different car. They weren't talking to each other.
Overruled.
Please answer the question.
What was the question one more time, sir?
He didn't try to run away from you after you passed him going on northbound, southbound.
He did, sir. I had my lights on and he did not stop when I told him to stop.
Officer Falcone, he has a Challenger. He could drive 100 miles an hour if he wanted to. He drove 5 miles an hour according to you, correct?
Yes,
In
sir.
your reasonable mindset, think that that is trying to evade arrest right then and there.
Yes, sir, I do, because I had my lights on, told him to stop, and he did not.
And you thought that in that spot where you asked him to stop, that was a safe place to stop.
Yes, sir.
Would you agree that where he stopped less than a minute later was a much safer spot for him to stop?
No, sir, not necessarily.
off the road in a driveway is not safer than the middle of the road.
There wasn't a whole lot of traffic that day, so it was not.
I'm trying to see you as a fact witness, not as an advocate. Is it safer to stop in the middle of the street or in a driveway? I'll
So
pass the witness.
Any further questions?
No, Judge.
Is this witness released?
Yes, Judge.
Released, Your Honor.
You're free to go. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Call your next witness.
State calls Officer Timothy Sanchez.
You're
And Officer
muted.
Falcon, you're free to leave.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Officer Sanchez, you're muted right now. There you go.
Yes, sir.
If you would raise your right hand and be sworn. You swear or affirm testimony about to give be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Good morning, Officer. Could you spell your name for the record, please?
My first name is Timothy, Timothy. Last name is Sanchez, Sanchez.
And how are you employed?
I'm employed as a police officer with the McKinney, Texas Police Department.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been there for about 6 years now. I was on patrol for the past 5, and I just got assigned to the school, be a school resource officer this year.
Okay. Could you give me a brief rundown of your training that you've had?
We've had the basic police course. I hold an intermediate peace officer's license right now. Been through a driving course, just all the basic police stuff we've had, the police training through the academy. We've had continuous ongoing training with the police department that we hold yearly, with tactics, force usage.
Okay. So you're not assigned to patrol duty anymore, but you were on March 28th, 2020. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And were you, where were you patrolling that day? What part of McKinney?
I'm over in the Baker sector, so that is on the east side. So anything east of 75, north of Virginia, is where I was patrolling. We had gotten a call that day for a reckless driver located off Drexel Street.
Okay. So you received that call. What happened then?
Me and my partners, whoever was assigned to that call, were making our way over there. I remember on the radio, I heard the first officer on scene, which I think was Officer Falcone. He had attempted to stop a vehicle, a white Dodge Charger, or not Charger. But I think it was
Objection asked to hearsay, Your Honor. He had heard that
Sustained.
Officer Falcon.
So you were dispatched to a reckless driver. Did you find the alleged reckless driver?
I did find the vehicle that was described. Was leaving eastbound on Drexel. It turned southbound onto Throckmorton Place, which is where I encountered it, which is what, after I heard Officer Falcon over the radio say the vehicle had fled from him after he
Objection asked to hearsay again, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Your Honor, that is a present sense impression that he's quoting.
No, it probably is. So I'm going to overrule the objection.
You can continue, officer.
Okay. So I got behind the vehicle as it went southbound on Throckmorton Place. I caught it on the radio that I was behind it, gave the license plate number. The vehicle went eastbound on Broad Street, at which point I initiated my sirens. My lights were already on. The vehicle did not stop. It continued northbound on Throckmorton Street. I'm trying to think. Yes. Northbound on Throckmorton Street. It saw Officer Rogers coming at them from the opposite direction. He was coming southbound on Throckmorton. The vehicle went westbound on Drexel, and then went northbound on Throckmorton Place, stopped at 903 in the driveway.
Okay. So you said that your lights were on. Were your sirens on too?
I say where I initiated them when we turned northbound on the Throckmorton from Broad Street.
Okay. Whenever you as an officer have your sirens and lights going, what is that signaling to the driver ahead of you?
It is letting them know they need to pull over.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
You can continue, officer.
It's letting them know that we're behind them. They need to pull over and stop. Either we're going to go around them or we're trying to attempt to stop them.
In your vehicle, was it a marked McKinney PD vehicle?
Yes, it was. I was in a marked patrol car that day.
Okay, so you said he eventually pulled over. So how many officer vehicles do we have right there when he pulls over?
At least 3 of us. I know we had more coming because we were under the assumption they were trying to flee the scene.
Okay. Now, if you could, for the part that you followed him for, could you give a guess on how fast the defendant was going?
We only went about 15 to 20 miles per hour the whole time.
Okay. Now we're in a neighborhood right now. Is that right?
Yes, it's a residential area. Yes.
So it wasn't like a straightaway where he could go really fast.
No, I mean, I'm not going to say what he was doing, but there were a lot of turns, a lot of streets. I think he would have continued up north on Throckmorton if he had not seen the other officer coming southbound with his light.
Objection calls for speculation, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Officer, have you reviewed what has been presented to the court as State's Exhibit 3?
Yes.
What is that?
Here's my dash cam video.
Okay, so you're recording with your dash cam this pursuit?
Yes.
Okay, have you reviewed it
Yes, I have.
before this hearing?
I did.
Okay, have any alterations been made to it?
No.
So would you say it's a fair and accurate depiction of that incident?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Your Honor, State moves to admit State's Exhibit 3.
No objection, Your Honor.
State 3 is admitted.
No further questions, Judge.
Any questions for this witness?
Now, you'd mentioned that you'd been at McKinney PD for 6 years. What were you employed as prior to that?
I was a gunnery sergeant in the United States Marine Corps.
And how long did you do that?
22 years.
Did you have any police training while you were a gunnery sergeant with the Corps?
I did not.
Now, you'd mentioned that when you first interacted with Mr. Mendoza, were you in front of him, behind him, or off to his left or right?
When the vehicle was turning southbound onto Throckmorton Place, so I was right behind him when he pulled out in front of me.
All right. And how much later after that did he pull over?
I'd say it was within 50 seconds or so.
And you'd agree that these were very narrow streets
Yes, they are narrow.
and that there are cars parked to the left and to the right.
Yes, sir.
And you'd also indicated that there were 3 other cruisers involved in pursuing Mr. Mendoza. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, he pulled over at a residence that was a driveway. Is that correct?
Yes, it was.
And you'd agree that that's probably the safest place to pull himself over and 3 police cruisers.
He had plenty of other options to turn into. Yes, sir.
In 50 seconds, and driving, you said not very fast, correct?
Correct.
And accounting for 4 cars that needed to somehow stop without blocking the road, you'd agree the safest spot would have been a driveway.
I do not agree with that.
You think the middle of the street's just fine and everybody else can deal with it?
He had some open spots to pull over to the side. Yes, sir.
Would you have fit behind him, in front of him, and to the side of him in those open spots without obstructing traffic?
That obstructing traffic? No.
Okay, thank you. Next, with respect to the stop itself, was he compliant with the directions from the officers?
Yes.
All right. Now, your prior officer, Officer Falcone, had mentioned that y'all had done a felony stop. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And that's special added risk for you all. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And it's a different protocol for how you interact with people accused of that. Is that correct?
Yes.
And he complied with you. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, he did.
And he got into your cruiser after you had him cuffed, correct?
I think he got into Officer Rogers' cruiser.
Okay. All right. Very well. I'll pass the witness.
Any further questions?
No, Judge.
Is this witness released?
Yes,
Released,
Judge.
Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. You're free to go.
All right, thank you.
Call your next witness.
State calls Officer Daniel Rogers.
If you would unmute and raise your right hand and be sworn. Do you swear or affirm testimony about to give in this cause to be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? We can't hear you. You need to turn up your volume or something.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. All right.
Okay. Officer, can you spell your name for the record, please?
It's Daniel Rogers, DanielRogers.
And how are you employed?
As a police officer in the city of McKinney.
How long have you had that position?
Just shy of 5 years.
Okay. Can you give us a brief rundown of your training for that position?
Yes, sir. I go to a basic police officer academy at Collin College. Upon completion of that, you do field training for several months thereafter. And then you're employed as a full-time police officer.
Okay. Were you ever assigned to patrol duty?
Yes.
Were you on patrol duty on March 28th, 2020?
Yes, sir.
What part of McKinney were you working in that day?
The northeast side of McKinney.
Okay. And that day, was there ever any incident where you arrested someone?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what first happened that led to that arrest from the beginning?
So we were dispatched to I don't remember if it was a reckless drive or whatever the situation was. It was a person throwing beer cans or beer bottles out of a white Dodge Charger or Challenger, excuse me, and doing donuts in the middle of the street.
Okay. So did you go to that location that was given?
Yes, sir. That was my assigned beat.
Okay. So what happened then? Did you get to that vehicle or driver?
Yeah. As I was getting to the scene, two other officers had already arrived there, located the vehicle, and a short pursuit had ensued. As I entered the area, then the car eventually turned up North Throckmorton Street towards my patrol car. So I came to a stop to try to avoid hitting his car or blocking the way or anything, just as our policy is. And then the pursuit continued down a couple other streets before it eventually came to a stop at a residence.
Okay. Now where all this happened, is this in Collin County?
Yes, sir.
And you had your lights on for this, is that true?
Yes, sir. Overhead emergency lights, and as he was turned towards me, I believe I even blipped the siren a few times to prevent him from striking my patrol car.
Okay. So when he pulled over eventually, what happened after that?
We went into a high-risk stop. That way it's safer for us and it's safer for the suspect. That way there's no surprises when we get up there. The stop took a little bit longer than usual. It appeared that he had a hard time kind of understanding commands or following commands. So as we did that.
Objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation.
Overruled.
We continued the stop, and I just transitioned over to a less lethal shotgun to prevent him from running back into the house. On my video, you can hear me say, "Do not go back inside the house," because it appeared at that
Objection
point.
as to narrative, Your Honor.
Sustained. Ask another question.
So he, whenever he got out of the car, what happened then?
When he got out of the car, so we did the high-risk stop, eventually got him into custody and seated him in the rear of the patrol car.
Okay. Before you took him into custody, was he walking towards you? Did you walk towards him?
In a high-risk stop, we always have the suspect face away from us, go through a series of commands to ensure that person has no weapons. Then we walk them backwards towards us. Once we've made sure that they don't have any visible weapons on us, then we have them kneel down to the ground, place them in hand restraints to place them at a position of disadvantage at the time.
Okay. Whenever he was doing this, he was walking. Was there anything off about his walking or his mannerisms?
Objection calls for speculation.
Overruled.
When he was walking back towards us, there was swaying, unsteady gait, various things that you may see during a DWI investigation.
Now, officer, something I should have asked you previously. Are you trained in DWI investigation?
Yes, sir. We received training during the Basic Peace Officers Academy, and then training at various points throughout our career for refresher on standard field sobriety tests.
Okay. So you get him in the back of one of the vehicles. What happened then?
Once he's seated in the back of the vehicle, we go through just standard protocol, clearing the vehicle, make sure there's nothing, no, weapons in the vehicle, any other persons in the vehicle, anything in plain view there, obviously, that would be a danger to us or to the general public.
And did you find anything of note inside the vehicle?
I believe it was Officer Falcon had informed me that there was an open beer bottle in there, and then I confirmed that there was an open Modelo beer bottle inside the car.
Okay. What kind of questions did you ask him whenever you first detained him?
So once he was detained, just basic questions, because I had no idea who he was. Asked him his name, or attempted to ask him his name, his address, any just identifying information. That was the first part of questioning.
Okay. What was he like? Was he responsive? How was he?
He was very incoherent in his speech pattern.
Objection, Your Honor. I'm going to object as to relevance at this point. The arrest was for evading arrest. It wasn't for driving intoxicated or public intoxication. So this line of questioning only goes through that, and it's absolutely more prejudicial than probative.
Well, I think it goes to the issue of whether he was drinking while he was on probation. So anyway.
But with respect to this arrest, Your Honor, I'm not exactly sure that they were investigating a probation revocation. They were investigating whether it was a DWI, an evading arrest, or a public intoxication.
Your Honor, as Officer Rogers is going to state, he was arrested for driving while intoxicated.
Well, and the other thing is, in the motion to revoke, it alleges that he admitted drinking that day. So, I mean, his level of intoxication is relevant. So, go ahead and ask another question.
So, how was his? You said he was incoherent. Is that right?
Yes, sir. The best way to sum it up is if you were to watch my body camera video, you can see my line of questioning. As far as asking him his name, he had a very difficult time spelling his name or even giving me his name. He was so incoherent, could not spell his first name. When I asked him his address, he couldn't remember his address. He did state that he'd lived there for 5 months. I found that to be very odd that you couldn't remember your address. Eventually, I had to get his address off of a simple envelope in his car to try to verify his identity. When I asked him his date of birth, he couldn't formulate his date of birth, couldn't remember it. At one point, I asked him.
Objection as to narrative.
The same. Ask another question.
Did you ask him his birthday?
I asked him his birthday, and at one point, he gave me his address rather than his birthday.
Okay. Now, is he? Did the driver speak with an accent?
Not a noticeable. I couldn't discern an accent or no accent because it was so slurred and thick tongue.
Okay. So was it obvious that he was able to understand you or not?
I believe it was obvious that he was understanding me. He could not formulate a thought due to his loss of mental faculties.
Objection calls for a speculation that he just made, and it's a legal one at that, Your Honor.
Overruled. I think he's entitled to give that opinion.
Officer Rogers, so the person that you pulled over that day, or that you encountered that day that you're just talking about, do you see him in this hearing right now?
Not up on my screen currently, but that may be my lack of technological.
Your Honor, could the defendant be asked to remove his face mask temporarily?
I don't think he can see him on his screen. Can you see all the people that are on this hearing?
Oh, I've found it now. I just had to hit the over arrow. But
Can you identify him by an item of clothing?
Yeah, he's wearing, looks like a black shirt and a tan tie, possibly.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant?
The record should reflect that.
So you're talking with him, getting basic information from him. Did you ask him at all about drinking?
Yes, sir.
And what were your questions and what were his responses?
I just asked him a simple question: have you had any alcoholic beverages today? And he replied yes. And from what I remember, he said 3 beers. And then I went into the standard DWI type investigation, asking what type of beer, what size of beer, so on and so forth.
Okay. And what kind of beer did he say he'd been drinking?
He said that he had, I believe, Budweiser. And so I referred to it as, asking him, was he drinking blue cans, quote unquote, or red cans, whether it was a light beer or a regular beer. And then the line of questioning kind of got lost in that point. He wasn't able to tell me tall or small beers. But he did admit to the 3 beers.
Okay. And and you testified just earlier that, but inside his car, there's a beer, but it wasn't Budweiser. It was a Modelo. That's what you said earlier, right?
Correct.
So after you asked him these questions, what happened next?
After I asked him those questions, I stopped for a moment and spoke with my coworkers kind of on what we wanted to do with the situation. And at that point, just because of the amount of evidence and I believe I had probable cause at that point to believe that the defendant was intoxicated and driving a motor vehicle. And so I informed him that he was under arrest and placed him in my patrol car rather than another officer's patrol car.
Okay. So what happened after that?
After he was placed in the back of my patrol car, I read aloud his DIC statutory warning, informing him that he was under arrest for being intoxicated while driving a motor vehicle.
Okay. And did he, what did you do after reading the forms?
After I read him the forms, I went back to the vehicle a couple times, and then he denied. He never affirmatively answered whether or not he would consent to a blood draw, because that's what we do at the McKinney Police Department. We don't do intoxilizer. We only do a legal blood draw. He would not give me a clear answer, so I told him that his failure to respond was going to be taken as a no, and that I would apply for a search warrant to obtain a sample of his blood. Then he became aggravated and refused to get his foot out of the door, and it just kind of went downhill after that as far as his conduct.
Okay. Where did you transport him from here?
So from the scene, I initially transported him to Medical City McKinney. That's standard protocol. We go to the nearest hospital to begin the legal blood draw.
Okay. Now, on the way there, you said his behavior went downhill. What do you mean by that?
While he was in the back of the patrol car, he went through a series of different emotions, crying, screaming, yelling profanities, stating that he had a lot of money, he was going to get out, so on and so forth. But it was definitely a series of emotions all throughout.
Okay. What happened once you got to the hospital? Did you perform a blood draw?
I did not. It was actually a unique situation because of the unknown nature of the COVID-19 virus at the time. When the arrest took place, it was still in its infancy stage. As I pulled up, ambulance pulled up, and the firefighters were all wearing Tyvek suits that got out and took a confirmed COVID patient inside the hospital. Just due to that, and I did not, at the time, what I thought was a Class B misdemeanor on Mr. Mendoza, I notified my supervisor. I said I didn't feel comfortable putting a defendant or a prisoner in an environment that could lead to some sort of sickness that was unknown at the time. So I informed him of my decision that I was not going to get a legal blood draw because of that, and basically in protection of Mr. Mendoza and myself.
Okay. Last thing. So did you, before you took him to the hospital, did you check to see if he had an active license or insurance?
Yeah, while I was on the way to the hospital, we were still just trying to identify him because the date of birth that was given was not the accurate date of birth. And that could have been just because of the speech at the time and how incoherent it was. So I did a series of checks on our in-house database to try to locate somebody by his name. I did locate somebody, then I relayed back to dispatch to have them run his name through NCIC, TCIC to check for license status and for any outstanding warrants. They finally returned back that we identified him as Mr. Mendoza, and learned that his driver's license was suspended due to alcohol-related incident.
Okay. And so that suspension, would that be under Texas Transportation Code 521.344?
Yes.
Okay. And had you asked him if he had a valid license before this, whenever you first talked to him?
Yeah, during my initial questioning, just asking for his identity, I said, do you have a driver's license or ID? And he stated yes. I asked him where it was, and he said his pocket, and then changed to telling me possibly the car or someplace else. Once again, it was incoherent when he was doing it, and we were unable to locate anything.
Okay. Have you reviewed what has been presented to the court as State's Exhibits 4 and 5?
Is that the videos?
Well, have you reviewed any evidence from this case, any recordings or any evidence?
Yeah, just my in-car camera, my body camera.
Okay. And just for the record, what is marked as State's Exhibit 4 is your body cam. So and State's Exhibit 5 is your in-car cam. So you were recording this incident when it happened. Is that true?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And when you reviewed it earlier, had there been any alterations done to the video?
No, sir.
So it would be a fair and accurate depiction of that event?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, State offers Exhibits 4 and 5.
Your Honor, may I take this witness on board, Dyer?
Yes.
With respect to the custodial interrogation that you had with Mr. Mendoza, had you advised him of any rights when you had him already subdued before he started interviewing him about possible alcohol offenses?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you ask him to consent to searches of his car?
No, sir.
And with respect to the portion where you said that you did Mirandize him, do you believe that he understood that he was being Mirandized at that point?
Yes, sir.
Now, you'd indicated earlier that he seemed to be not in full control of his faculties, correct?
Yes, sir.
So how would you know if he understood that he was being Mirandized?
He was still able to respond to questioning. It was just in an incoherent speech pattern, as I said before.
Now, prior to being Mirandized, did he have any idea that what he said and told you could be used against him?
I wouldn't know what he.
What's for speculation, Judge?
Sustained.
But you'd agree you did not warn him before you started having questions for him. Is that correct?
No, sir.
And Your Honor, we're going to object to any of the portion of this video being entered into evidence. I don't believe that the protocol was followed, despite it was a felony stop. I don't believe that he was fully advised of any of his rights. And even if he had been, the testimony of the officer doesn't indicate that he fully understood what it was he was answering to.
Well,
Your Honor, if I can respond.
yeah, you can.
So first, I think that defense counsel is referencing the first exhibit, the body cam. All the in-car cam was done. It starts with the Miranda warnings given, and then it follows from that. Now, the body cam, I believe I can question the witness further to prove that he was being detained. He was not under arrest. Officer Rogers did not say he was under arrest until afterwards. They, as the state's exhibit will show, they actually moved cars. They were in one car, the closest car, to do preliminary questions, the DWI investigation. He was being detained after evading arrest with a vehicle. And once they completed their investigation, Officer Rogers moved him to his own car. He then stated, "You're under arrest," and then proceeded with the Miranda warnings.
And may I respond to that, Your Honor?
Sure.
It was a felony stop. They ordered him to raise his arms up, lift his shirt up, and then they cuffed him. How was he not detained at that point? He's physically detained.
Just because someone is arrested for a felony stop doesn't mean that officers can't continue an investigation.
I mean, they do it all the time. It's part of what they have to do to figure out what's going on. So the objection to 4 and 5 are overruled. But here's the problem. we'd already admitted states 5 earlier. I think you misnumbered something.
Okay,
Supposedly is a 911 from the November 1st incident.
so that should be States Exhibit
7.
6 and 7. Is that, did I mislabel them, Your Honor?
Thanks. I mean, I have, they don't say what they are on them. So I don't know, but you did admit 5 and 6 through Miss Matson as
So, Your Honor,
911.
I must have misspoke on those. My apologies. The 2 911 calls with Miss Matson, those should be Exhibit 6 and 7.
Okay, I've cleared that up then. Okay.
And just, Your Honor, one other housekeeping matter. I want to make an offer of proof on the overruling of my objections to the custodial interrogation prior to being Mirandized. And Your Honor, just for the record, I want to put in my client was fully subdued. He was fully cuffed. He was detained, and he was not advised that anything he said at this point and afterwards could be used against him in a court of law. And I believe that that is a violation of his rights under the U.S. Constitution.
Well, it depends on what they're trying to use against him. If they didn't ask any questions that are relevant, I mean, they're not trying to use any of his answers against him. So what are you saying?
Well, the questions about how much he had been drinking, whether they were going to go anything further to search his car, all started right there and there. If they had asked him, "Are you feeling okay, Judge? We're worried that this had happened." If they asked him any questions about doing donuts or running over toys or whatever the 911 call was, I'd understand, Your Honor. But at this point, they went immediately to go, "We need to prove he's been drinking," and they didn't advise him of his rights. And that's why I've raised that objection. They they gave him the Miranda objections after they already had their information. And at that point, it's too late.
Well, it'll be on video, I'm assuming. And so if they did not give him, they gave him Miranda warnings, I'm assuming at some point. Is that right?
They did, but it was after he answered also all the incriminating questions.
Okay. Well, I'll watch it. If the answers came before he was Mirandized, I'll ignore it. If the answers came after he was Mirandized, then I'll consider it. Does that make sense?
And yes, and if you do decide to ignore it, Your Honor, I would also like that the suppression be issued with the rest of that interrogation that was done by Officer Rogers.
Okay. Well, I mean, from the point that he's Mirandized, anything he says after that, it's probably going to be admissible.
Okay.
All right.
Now, Your Honor, could we clarify so before the Miranda warnings, what are you still going to allow, after reviewing the video, are you still going to allow questions that were done as part of an investigation?
Yes.
Preliminary investigation? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Where were we?
So if those exhibits are admitted, Your Honor.
4 and 5 are admitted.
Yes. No further questions, Judge.
Any questions of this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. You had indicated that you'd gotten your peace officer training at Collin College. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then after that, you immediately joined the McKinney Police Force. Is that correct?
I was employed by the McKinney Police Department to go to the training, but then we go through field training.
Okay. And were you employed at any other police agencies prior to being employed at McKinney PD?
No police agencies, 8.5 years with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice before that.
Okay. Investigations while you were doing.
I'm sorry, the video cut out, sir.
What were your duties when you worked for the Texas Department of Corrections?
I was a correctional officer, a correctional supervisor, and then a sergeant over training.
And did you ever do any investigations of criminal offenses at the institutions?
Yes.
About how many?
I couldn't tell you. We had numerous.
And was this just with respect to inmates or with employees as well?
Inmates, and then towards the end of my career, some with employees, with the assistance of the Office of the Inspector General.
Okay. All right. Now, you'd mentioned the throwing of beer bottles in cans is what your understanding of the interaction beginning was. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And did you get a chance to review the 911 call in this case?
No, sir.
Okay. When you were dispatched out, did anybody tell you what the reason was you were going out there for?
It was the dispatch notes that the dispatchers received from the 911 call, and it was just that, throwing beer cans, doing donuts, and I believe maybe running over children's toys or something.
Okay. So you didn't see any of this, whether it was throwing beer bottles, cans, or running over toys or donuts or anything like that?
No, sir. I was a couple miles
All
away.
right. Now, you'd indicated that there's an audible portion of your cruiser that should give notice to somebody that they should stop, correct?
Yes.
Now, you know, these kids these days have pretty loud stereos in their car. Have you seen that before?
Yes, loud stereos, yes.
Yeah, and sometimes they're paying attention to their phones while they're driving. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is it possible he didn't hear you because his music was on too loud?
No, he admitted that he did hear me.
Okay. And this was before you Mirandized him or after you Mirandized him?
I believe it was before.
You also said it was a very short time between him getting lit up and him actually pulling over, correct?
A short distance.
Yeah. How about how much time elapsed?
I wouldn't tell you, I couldn't tell you an exact number.
Maybe less than a minute?
Yeah, that would probably be about right.
And there were 3 cruisers involved in this stop in this residential area, correct?
Yeah, 2 primary, and then I arrived on scene at third.
And he wound up pulling over at a driveway, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you'd agree that that's a safe spot for 1 car plus 3 cruisers to stop, correct?
Yes.
Now, let's talk about the COVID situation that you encountered. You had mentioned that he had popped positive for COVID-19 at the hospital. Is that correct?
He did not. No, there was a patient that arrived as we were arriving. And so I did not want to endanger your client by taking him outside with an unknown virus.
So my client never was tested for COVID. There were just other people there who had COVID, correct?
Yes, sir.
With respect to the language, do you speak Spanish?
No, sir.
And you don't know if he speaks Spanish or just English or a combination of the 2, correct?
I do not know that.
And you wouldn't have known if Spanish is a primary language for him or not?
No, sir.
And you'd indicated that he had trouble understanding you and you had trouble understanding him, correct?
I had indicated that I had trouble understanding him.
Did you have to ask him lots of the same questions over and over?
Yes, sir.
And is it possible maybe his English wasn't as good as you thought it was?
I do not believe that was the case at the time.
And why is that?
Because he was still responding to the questions. It was a trouble formulating a response to it. And when he did respond, the inability to speak clearly due to his extremely slurred and thick-tongued speech.
But you also testified that you thought he had an accent, correct?
I said I couldn't tell if he had an accent or not.
Okay. And since you don't speak Spanish, you wouldn't necessarily know?
Correct.
An accent could have been from an Iraqi, could have been from somebody from Nigeria, or it could have been Hispanic.
Correct.
Okay. And were you aware that he got an occupational driver's license after this incident?
I can't remember if I reviewed that or not. I think that he did have an occupational license, but I know that his license status showed as suspended.
Was he ultimately charged with that offense?
I can't remember. I don't remember if I did that or if that was after the fact. I couldn't tell you.
But as far as you know, he was not charged with DWI. He was not charged with driving without a license, and he was only charged with evading arrest. Is that correct?
On the initial report, yes.
Well, ultimately, when an indictment was done, correct?
Yes.
So you're saying that for failing to stop for 50 seconds in a 1.5 block area, you believe that beyond a reasonable doubt or preponderance of the evidence, that's evading arrest?
Absolutely, because of the totality of circumstances that day.
So the totality of circumstances is narrow streets, middle of the day, cars parked on both sides, and he pulled over within a minute.
It was because two police vehicles with emergency lights and sirens clearly marked McKinney police vehicles. They're black and white, clearly distinguishable as a police vehicle, audible and visual signs to pull over, and he turned head on towards my patrol car with emergency lights and siren activated as well. It would be clear to any person driving on the street that they need to immediately stop their vehicle and pull over for emergency vehicles.
And what if he had thought he didn't want to disrupt traffic at that point and wanted to find a safer spot to pull over?
There was no traffic.
No, you would block traffic even if it wasn't coming, if all four cars were stopped in the middle of the streets. Is that correct?
Yeah, if he had stopped in the middle of the street, yes, it could have blocked traffic.
But then you wouldn't have charged him probably with evading if he had done that.
If he would have pulled over upon the officer's immediate arrival and activating their lights, then no, he wouldn't have been charged with that.
So when we say immediate, I mean, 50 seconds is pretty quick. Wouldn't you agree?
That's extremely long for a traffic stop.
Not in a situation where you've got lots of cars in a narrow street.
Objection, argumentative.
Sustain.
Oh, so the fact that the streets are narrow or that there were cars parked on both sides of the street doesn't parlay into your totality of the circumstances.
He bypassed a couple of parking lot entrances, could have made any number of moves to stop his vehicle, and he chose not to do that.
And is it possible he really was looking to find a good spot to pull over and he just missed that parking lot?
No, not in my personal belief and experience.
And is it possible that y'all blocked him a little bit on that parking lot?
No, because he had the lead and there were two vehicles behind him.
And how soon after the lights went up was this parking lot in view of him?
I don't know about the other officers. Like I said, they were the ones that initially attempted to stop him.
What about you?
For me, I saw him as he turned, I can't remember what the cross street was, but turned onto North Rockmorton. There were cars on one side blocking, but there was open space, what would have been his left-hand side to pull over.
Okay, but with respect to this big parking lot you'd referenced, how much time after being lit up would he have had to be able to turn into this other lot that you think is preferable within the 50-second spot?
I don't know. It's the standard practice on a traffic stop. If a person sees police lights and siren, that person is to immediately pull to the right and stop their vehicle or come to a stop. And he chose to continue about his way and failed to stop. Unless you create a danger by stopping where you're at, correct? There wouldn't have been any danger. Like I said, there was no traffic. So you know the traffic flow in that area, and you could guarantee 100% that no other car was going to come there. There were multiple other avenues for another vehicle to go. Because of the small area there, he could have pulled over and it wouldn't have been an obstruction to any flow of traffic whatsoever. Well, ultimately, he has to pull over and use his best judgment, correct? Correct. And you're saying his best judgment to pull over in a safe spot is a felony offense? When you continue to drive and evade officers, it becomes a felony offense. For 50 seconds? Yes, sir. All right, I'll pass the witness.
Any
No
further
questions,
questions?
Judge.
Is this witness released?
Yes, Judge.
Released by defense?
Released by defense, Your Honor.
All right, you're free to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Call your next witness.
State calls Donald Bell.
You have to unmute. Then raise your right hand and be sworn. You're muted again. There you go.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you were addressing me.
All right, if you would raise your right hand and be sworn. You swear or affirm testimony about giving this cause to be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so be God.
Yes.
Mr. Bell, could you please spell your name for the record?
Donald, D-O-N-A-L-D, Bell, B-E-L-L.
And how are you employed, sir?
I'm a probation officer with Collin County.
How long have you had that position?
Since October of 2016.
And are you the probation officer for Porfirio Mendoza?
Yes, I am.
What cases is he on probation for right now?
He's currently on probation for the misdemeanor case that we're hearing right now, and then also a felony case that he just was placed on probation for, I believe, in December.
And what is that offense for?
It's for evading arrest with a vehicle.
Okay. Is that offense one of the allegations in the state's motion to revoke?
Yes, it's the offense that resulted in this motion, yes.
Okay. Whenever it's against the rules of probation to commit a criminal offense, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And whenever this happens, if they do commit one or are arrested for one, are they told to let you know about it?
Yes, it's one of the conditions that they're supposed to let us know within 48 hours of a new arrest.
And did he ever make that clear to you?
I know we discussed it. I don't know if it was exactly within the 48 hours. I'd have to go back in my notes and see.
Okay. Can you do that briefly?
Yes, I can.
And Your Honor, we haven't been handed his notes of what he's looking at, I don't unless, or at least if you can tell us what notes he are that he's looking at, because we did ask for all this information to be provided to us prior to the hearing.
It's either the chronos they were provided to the defense last week.
You provided that to me, but I don't know that that's what he's looking at.
What are you referring to, Mr. Bell?
The chronos that I have printed out.
Okay.
So I was notified on February 24th of the arrest. We discussed it during our scheduled office visit.
So if I can interrupt you, Mr. Bell, the offense date for this is March 28th. Is there a different date that you might be looking at? Well, I'm sorry, let me just ask a more direct question.
I'm sorry, it was April 14th.
Okay.
April 14th is when we discussed the new arrest.
So that's what, a little over 2 weeks afterwards?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did he bring it to your attention or did you bring it to his attention?
I don't remember the conversation directly, but I know it was brought up during the during the office visit.
And what did he have to say about it?
He stated he was just going to get some things like normal people do. He said he thought he was being pulled over for speeding and didn't immediately pull over because he was close to a friend's house.
Okay. At that time, did he have an active driver's license?
No, he did not have a driver's license. He was, and we discussed that, he was using an in-home device because he stated that he wasn't driving, so he didn't have a breathalyzer in any vehicle. He had the scheduled breathalyzer that he would use at home, or it was mobile, so he could use it at scheduled times.
Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Any questions?
Yes, thank you, Judge. Now, he was arrested, you said March 28th of 2020. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, that's a Saturday, correct?
I would have to look at a calendar. I'm not sure right off the top of my head.
If it was a Saturday, are your offices open then?
No,
How about a Sunday?
no.
And what if he was in jail for longer than Saturday or Sunday?
The conditions stay within 48 hours. Generally, when I do an initial intake with somebody, I let them know within 48 hours of their arrest or upon their release from jail. Because
And
obviously,
so-
if they're in jail, they won't be able to notify me within 48 hours of an arrest.
And do you know when he got out of jail?
I wouldn't know that right off the
Okay.
top of my head, no.
With respect to the services that he's completed thus far, I understand that he did not give a blood sample. Is that correct?
That was what was reported in the offense report, yes.
Were you aware that they wouldn't allow him to give a blood sample?
From the offense report, it stated that they had to get a warrant for the blood sample, and then they took him to the hospital to get that, and then they didn't do the blood sample at the hospital.
Understood, Mr. Bell, but even if he had consented, were you aware that they would not have been able to get a sample from him nonetheless?
No, there's no way I could have been able to be aware of that.
But that is a fact that because of COVID-19, they had people in there and weren't going to be able to get a blood draw from him anyway, correct?
I don't know if that's correct or not.
Okay, all right. Did you ask any questions about that?
I don't have in my notes that we discussed the blood draw, no.
And initially, was it listed as a DWI offense or was it an evading arrest?
No, the report that I got was not listed as a DWI offense.
Okay, all right. And were you aware that my client got an occupational driver's license at some point after this?
Yes.
Did he have an
notify-
interlock and did he get an interlock installed in his car to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, to my knowledge, he has one as of right now.
And, all right, I'll pass the witness.
Any further questions?
No, Judge.
Is this witness released?
Released, Your Honor.
Yes, Judge.
You're free to go. Thank you very much. Call your next
Thank you.
witness.
The state rests as to
Judge.
the allegations, Judge.
Who's
Actually,
Wendy
Judge,
Crooks?
I do want to reserve him for punishment if the pleas are not true, are not granted on my client's remark.
Well, what we'd have to do is bring them back in. What we're probably gonna do is take a break for probably till next week.
Okay.
Give me time to watch all the videos. So we will, if you need him again, we'll make him available at that time.
All right, thank you, Judge.
You're released right now, though. Thank you, Mr. Bell. Again, who's Wendy Crooks?
She is a witness for punishment if the allegations are found to be true.
Okay, so we'll need to bring her back too because I need to watch everything and do all that. Did you have any other witnesses as far as the true or not true portion of this?
No, Judge, the state rests as to the allegations. Before we get off, I would like to clarify the exhibit since I created a confusion with that, just to make sure we're all on the same page.
I have 1 through 7.
That's correct. Now 6 and 7 are conditionally admitted for punishment. 1 through 6 are for today.
Right. 6 and 7 are only for punishment. 1 through 5 are right. That's what I have.
And I will, and Judge, I'll email the court along with defense counsel the relevant portions of the video if you don't want to watch all of it.
I don't. Friday?
Next Friday, before that we had other Zoom and stuff that would, we can work it in.
What we'll do it, what day is Friday?
The 22nd.
Okay, that's soon enough. Okay. We just have to do it before the 26th. What we'll do is we'll set up another Zoom session for I'll let y'all know what I decide. Let y'all do your final arguments. Are y'all done with witnesses though?
We are, Your Honor. We just have a, motion for a directed verdict on a few of these.
Okay. What we'll do is we'll set up another Zoom session. Then you can make your motion for directed verdict on, unless you want to do it now. I mean, I don't care.
However the judge wishes, however the court wishes, Your Honor.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and do that now.
Okay.
They've rested, and I'm assuming you want to make your motion for directed verdict before you have a chance to offer any evidence. So
That's correct, Your Honor.
okay.
And Your Honor, I believe that the states failed to meet their burden on paragraphs 1, number 2, number 3, and ultimately number 4, number 6, if the court rules in my favor on the statements made prior to him being Mirandized. With respect to number 1, don't believe that the court met that the DA's office met their respect to the reasonableness and totality of the circumstances. The stop took 50 seconds to appear, as corroborated by the evidence of all of the state's witnesses who were present at the time.
You pled guilty to that.
I understand. Well, yes, Your Honor, but we don't have any evidence in the court's file that there's a judgment on it or that anybody pled guilty other than somebody said he did. There's no other evidence to show that there's a conviction or anything.
Well, I assume it's going to show up on video. I mean, I'm going to deny that motion for now, but I'm assuming I'll be able to watch.
Well, just as an offer of proof, typically you need to have a judgment and a sentence that shows that he was convicted for that offense. And there's no video that shows him pleading that. And there's been no evidence shown of a court reporter's record of him having a plea regarding that particular charge. And the state still needs to show evidence of that. And they
dealing
haven't.
with preponderance of the evidence right now.
Even in preponderance, there needs to be a scintilla of evidence, and that's well below preponderance, and there's not even that.
I'm overruling on as to 1 and as to 2 because there's also some mention at the time he didn't have a driver's license. He since has gotten an occupational license is what I think the testimony was. So
and the reason I say the burden hasn't met, Your Honor, is that case was ultimately dismissed and never filed. So there's no criminal conviction. They're listing it as a criminal act and a conviction ultimately that happened to my client, which has not happened because they wound up dismissing that case. And as to number 3, even if he had given his consent, they still wouldn't have been able to get that from him, and they're still holding that against him. And I don't believe
I think a condition of his probation, of every probation, is that you will consent to a breath sample. Or
I understand, Judge.
Consent, so anyway,
but even if he had, it wouldn't have made a difference, Judge.
I agree with that, but if he consented, they probably wouldn't have gotten it, but he didn't consent, so he violated his probation in that respect. So I think there's some evidence that he might have violated his probation.
And once again, I would also refer to my request for suppression of any of the information regarding drinking or anything like that prior to that on number 3 and number 4. If they had
I'll have to watch the video as to 4.
Okay. And with respect to number 6, while he may have had some evidence of showing him driving at that point, I'm not exactly sure that they presented any evidence that there wasn't an unbypassed deep lung device in there. Nobody said that they saw one. I don't remember hearing anything in the evidence, no pictures of the car, that it wasn't there, just somebody saying, well, it wasn't there. There's no real inventory search that at least I was able to see on the camera. It was from a very, very long distance away. So I'm not sure, other than them saying that that's enough proof, even preponderance of the evidence to show that he wasn't using a deep lung device in his car. Thank you, Judge.
Yeah, I don't know that he even had to have a deep lung device if he had an in-home unit.
That's also correct. He was complying with that.
So I'll grant your directed verdict as to number 6, because I don't think that was a condition of his probation.
Judge, may I respond to that
Yeah,
briefly?
yeah.
So Mr. Donald Bell from probation, he did testify that there is an interlock or DLD requirement. In this case, the defendant had told him that he was not driving. He did not have an active license. Therefore, an exception was made to have an at-home device.
Right.
Mr. Bell also testified that he was never notified of a deep lung device being present in any car that Mr. Mendoza was driving at any time.
Well, but I think that if the agreement was that he would have an in-home device, he wouldn't have a deep lung device. And so it couldn't have been a condition of his probation. If that makes sense. He would have a in-home device instead of a deep lung device. So I don't see how he could violate his probation by not having something he wasn't required to have because he lied to the probation officer.
From my understanding, and from my understanding of Mr. Bell's testimony, the rule is that if you drive, you have to have an interlock device. No, it is never okay to drive without an interlock device.
That is true.
And he had told probation that he wasn't going to drive, so it wasn't an issue. But then he decided to drive. We don't know how many times, but he was caught this time driving, and there was no deep lung device that probation was ever made aware of. Now, this isn't beyond a reasonable doubt, but it's probably true that he did not have one because he didn't tell probation about it. Why would you get a deep lung device and not tell your probation officer?
Yeah.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yeah, well, I'm going to look at the paperwork and see if he was required to have a deep lung device. I'll just take it all under advisement and figure it out that way.
All right, thanks, Judge.
All right, and then what we'll do, I think we're going to set up a Zoom for 9:30 on January 22nd. Will that work?
Looking, Judge.
Yes, sir. I have one witness that I will need to confirm that she's available then, but she's pretty flexible. I assume she'll be fine with it.
We left her hanging, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes, Your Honor, we're available.
That'll work. Okay, 9:30 on the 22nd. We'll set up another Zoom, and then I'll get a chance to look at everything, and then we'll decide true or false, and move right into punishment if we need to, or what we'll need to do. Okay.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay.
See y'all then. Thank y'all.
All right, thanks, Judge.
Hi, Judge.
See ya.
And we said 9:30, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, got it.
She'll send you a Zoom
All right,
invite.
thanks.